But at the moment, AI struggles to see the bigger picture. It gives you incredibly powerful assistance, but it's not quite at the level yet where it's going to replace a marketing manager or a consultant or a domain expert. This is the B2B Performance Marketing Podcast by Webmarketer, here to help you make the right moves with your B2B advertising. No spin, no smoke and mirrors, just honest insights from the advertising front line.
Welcome back. I'm Maelien Holton.
And I'm Louis Holton Davis. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about how AI is reshaping the B2B marketing landscape.
Now, I'm sure you've noticed that since the rise of AI, there's been a huge increase in the amount of content that's been published. And I'm sure by now that you can smell AI-generated content from a mile away. The M-dashes and the emojis are a dead giveaway for one. In 2014, so over 10 years ago, Mark Schaefer coined a term called content shock in a blog post that rippled through the marketing world. Back then, he noticed that content was being published quicker than the demand to consume it, and he warned that this was only going to get worse. And that was before the impact of AI. Today, anyone from a junior marketer to a business owner with no marketing knowledge can churn out content with little to no barrier to entry. It kind of feels like before AI was the norm, we were in this golden age of content where the standards and quality were really high. But with AI, we haven't actually seen more high quality content that cuts through the noise. For the most part, we've just got more noise, so more content with less engagement and a rise in empty, soulless comments.
What's really interesting is that most people, myself included, predicted that AI would go for the lines of work that are most logical first. So industries where there were very clear rules of play, procedures and parameters, so admin and accounting. And while we have seen that happen, the thing that nobody was expecting was how quickly it disrupted the creative industries as well. Copywriting, image generation, and even video and animation. But I'm not too sure it's going to be taking our jobs just yet. From a marketing perspective, with the support of AI, you get a team of a very competent junior level. Now, that's not to say it's not going to evolve, because it will, and it's going to do it quickly. But at the moment, AI struggles to see the bigger picture, to consider the nuances, and to zoom out and contextualize. So looking at things like the market, the commercial season, the business model, the customer, and loads of other things. It gives you incredibly powerful assistance, but it's not quite at the level yet where it's going to replace a marketing manager or a consultant or a domain expert. But there are definitely questions around how long that will take, how to nurture entry-level talent, and what the middle of the career ladder and above will look like over time.
A point that I think gets missed is that the human in the loop is actually really critical. If you expect AI to take jobs off your plate from start to finish, then you're going to be disappointed. I also think we need to be really careful not to outsource our brain to AI, and instead we should be using it to outsource our time. Using it to speed up the parts where we provide very little value. So the formatting, the cleansing, the structuring, and the summarizing. And then doubling down on that high impact 20% where the human input is still way more powerful.
In episode 13, I talked about when I went to HeroConf in Brighton earlier this year, and one of the speakers used the phrase, AI is a race to the mean, which made so much sense. If you think about it, it takes its knowledge base, which is basically the internet, and forms its output based on an average of what's already out there. Now, obviously, it's way more advanced than that, and it's colored by what your LLM knows about you and how you use it. But the output of AI by default is an average. So if you ask it to write a blog post on B2B marketing strategy, what you'll get is a polished version of something that's been said hundreds of times before. And in a market that's getting more and more flooded with average content, just posting for the sake of it gives you a much lower awareness bump than it would have done before. Now, on the flip side, if we're not using AI, we're falling behind. So we have to use it. We just have to do it in the right way. We have to teach it what works, and right now we also have to take over at a certain point and take it from average to unique. This means layering in things that AI can't, so things like lived experiences, your own hot takes, your own data, or even a unique tone of voice. And this has a huge implication on performance marketing. If your ads and your landing pages sound like and say the same thing as everyone else, they're not going to resonate with your audience, and as a result, they're not going to convert. I've thought for a while that as technologies evolve, it's actually the old school marketing principles that matter more and more. So speaking to the right people at the right time with the right message. Even before AI, I had a really big problem with the fact that the vast majority of marketing copy felt like it was written for the business itself, as if it was its own ICP. And now, for the reasons that we spoke about before, that's just getting amplified. So there's never been a better time to get to know your audience, what they care about, what they're struggling with, what they're trying to achieve, and to speak to that. I'd say that doing that and doing it originally and as a human is a huge differentiator right now.
I guess it would be good to talk a little bit about how we use AI at Webmarketer. AI is great at carrying out basic ad account audits. So for this reason, we use it to analyze Google Ads Editor exports. Everything has to be double checked and there's always more to add, but it does get us off to a great start. It's also great for advanced Google Sheets formulas. So Louis, I remember when you blocked out 2 weeks in your calendar just to sort out our reporting backend. And now we're regularly doing what would take hours in minutes. It's made our Google Tag Manager setups better. While it does like to lead you down a bit of a rabbit hole sometimes, it's taking us a lot less time to come to really robust solutions. And it's also saved us hours as a troubleshooting assistant. It helps us for review mining, so looking at our customers' reviews and getting a summary of them to really capture the voice of the customer, as well as mining competitors' negative reviews to see what they do badly that our clients do well. We also use it to summarize forums and Reddit threads. This helps us find challenges and pain points that potential prospects are openly discussing. And then we end up with a basic read on the market and the perception of what's being done well and what's being done badly. And we've just started to use it to build internal tools as well. We've just finished building out a new pricing calculator using Replit. It looks so much better and it presents our costs way more professionally than it did before when we were using Google Sheets. So we're not asking AI to create our strategies or where to put our budget or to write ads that would run unedited. Those are all jobs that need input from an expert. AI accelerates the data gathering and the low value work so it can bring you to 70% done, where we can then jump in and add the finishing touches that you need a specialist for.
I also feel like AI is moving so much faster in e-commerce than it is in B2B. Google very recently added Product Studio to their Merchant Center, which is an AI tool for product photography and improving images. Now, this goes back to something we discussed in one of our earliest episodes, which is that e-commerce is much more of a closed loop system. So products, sales, customer services all live in one system that powers the website. It also doesn't need much manual intervention because it's all digitalized and led by the customer. So the data is pretty clean by default. The fact that this is all really nicely packaged up together makes it ripe for AI to disrupt. But B2B is different, as we know. It's way more fragmented. Tech stacks are messy. Different businesses have loads of different combinations, and if we're honest, they're not always kept up to date. As a result, it's a lot more difficult for AI to cover as much ground in B2B, and because of that, it's evolved in a much less all-encompassing way.
As always, let's end with a bit of a takeaway. Content Shop was talked about in 2014, and AI has taken this to a whole new level. We needed to work hard to cut through the noise before, but now that noise is so much louder. AI is like a very competent junior, brilliant at speeding up those simpler tasks, but it still needs an expert human brain at the end. By default, AI is average, so to stand out, you really need to add the human back in. That means the lived experience, the tone, the perspective, things that AI can't replicate. Outsource your time, don't outsource your brain. Use AI to accelerate things like quick insights, review mining, or to build simple tools. The stuff that you can do, but you don't add much value through doing it. And finally, e-commerce is further ahead because it's a clean, closed-loop system, whereas B2B is much more fragmented. So it needs a much more careful integration because the use cases are that much more siloed.
I guess it's really encouraging that even though AI is touching all aspects of B2B marketing and operations, it's never been more important to be human. If you found this episode useful, please share it with a colleague and leave us a review. And if you've got a challenge that you'd like us to tackle, just head to webmarketeruk.com/topic and drop us a line. Thanks for listening.